Welcome to Kyle Reader Music. Thanks for stopping by the channel. You know, the other day I was reading through the comments on one of my videos and somebody had a really good question. They asked me, what can I do to level up my guitar playing? Now that's a great question, and I figured if they had the question, maybe there were others out there that would have it as well. And so today I want to talk about that. I've got 3 tips for you. Let's jump right in. My first tip is this. You need to surround yourself with other musicians, and when you're around them, you need to learn all that you can. Now, I remember when I was young, I worked in a music store, and I knew who the heavy hitters were around town that would come into the music store. I knew who the players were. And one of the things I always tried to do was when they came into the store, I'd try to get them off in a corner somewhere and ask them to show me something. And they were gracious and they were kind, and most of the time they would do just that. They'd grab a guitar, teach me a cool hot lick, and I'd work on that thing for the next week until I'd see them again. And I did that with all of the guys that came into the music store who were better than me. And then through the years, as I played with other musicians, other guitar players, fiddle players, mandolin players, jazz players, banjo players, country players, rock players, whoever I would find who was better than me in some way, I would try to pick up a tip or try to pick up some technique or some music concept, and I would try to learn from them. So you've got to spend time with other musicians that are better than you. Now, one other thing in regard to finding someone who's better than you, you need a mentor. What I mean by that is a teacher. You need someone that you can go to and you can ask questions and they can sit down and show you things somewhat on a regular basis. I too have been very fortunate in regards to that. I've had a music teacher for many years. Now, I don't take regular lessons from him now, but he's a monster of a guitar player and he just lives a few miles away from my house. And so anytime I have questions or want to learn something new, I'll call him up or I'll go see him and I'll pick his brain about certain things. And he's been my music mentor ever since I was in high school. He's a phenomenal guitar player. And so I've been so fortunate to have somebody like that in my life to teach me things. So that's my first tip. Number 1, you've got to surround yourself with other musicians that are better than you and learn all you can when you're in their presence. All right, here's my second tip for leveling up your guitar playing. Learn to practice and play songs. In other words, build a repertoire of music that you can play over and over and over again. Think about the goal of playing an instrument. The goal of using the instrument is to make music. It's to play music. It's to play songs. And so it is important for us to sit around and practice scales and arpeggios and chord progressions and all of those kinds of things so that we become better musicians. But those things find their expression ultimately in songs. One of the greatest things that you can do is learn a bunch of songs. Now here's the value of learning songs. Every time you play a song, you're playing in a particular key. And let's say you're playing around in the key of G. You're doing a song in the key of G. Well, as you work through that song, you're learning things that are familiar to that key. The same would be true in any other key. You're learning chord progressions, chord names. You're learning what scales go over what chords, and you're starting to put things together. So when you find yourself in a given key, you say, you know, this works here. I learned that music concept in this song. And so when you play music and when you learn new songs, use those songs as a study. In other words, ask questions of a piece of music when you sit down to learn something. Try to figure out in your mind what's going on in this song. What's the progression? What's the scales that go over it? How is this song being manipulated to come up with all of these wonderful melodies? And so when you look at a song, when you actually look at a piece of music or a song, you're learning so much because so many musical concepts and ideas find their ultimate expression in a song. So something that I do, you might kind of think I'm a nerd for this, but I actually have a little pocket notebook. You can go to the dollar store and you can find those little composition notebooks. And one of the things that I do is I have written in this little notebook all of the songs that I know. It's a repertoire list of pieces of music that I can play. And so I keep a log of all of that. And then what I do on a weekly basis is I take a note card and I actually pick out one song per day. And so I'll have a note card that'll last for a week. It'll have 5 songs on it. And every single day, I practice something in my repertoire list. And so I'll work on that song for a day. I'll do that for a week. And then at the end of the week, I'll go through my note card of the 5 songs that I rehearsed. And I'll play through that repertoire list for that week again. And I will do that through my entire corpus of music that I know. until I work myself all the way through it. Now, again, I know that's kind of nerdy. You may think that's silly, but it's proven to be a great help to me. So you have to play songs. You have to play music. And then while you're doing that, keep a list, maybe in the back of your notebook, of songs that you want to add to your repertoire list. So I've got this massive list of songs in the back of my notebook of songs that I want to learn. Now, you have to be selective about that, of course, because we only have so much time. You can't learn everything. And so you pick the best stuff, the stuff that speaks to you, the stuff that allows you to engage in artistic expression through those songs, and you put them on a list and you bring them into your regular practice, okay? So practice and play songs. Try to learn a new song every single week. It's a wonderful tip, and you definitely will level up if you engage in learning new songs all the time. All right, here's my third and my last tip for today. If you want to level up on your guitar, you just simply have to play your instrument for hours. There is absolutely no substitute for hard work on the instrument. Now listen, I understand we can get distracted very easily. We can listen to music. We can talk about music. We can talk about playing the guitar. We can talk about great musicians who play the guitar. But none of that ultimately is a substitute for our spending time on the instrument. You just simply have to sit down and put hours behind the wires. You've got to just spend time with the instrument. And so I recommend, again, you might call me a nerd for this, I have a little kitchen timer that I set on my table. And oftentimes what I'll do is I'll set that timer for 30 minutes or maybe an hour. And I'll sit down in the chair and I will literally just practice until the timer goes off. Now that works for me. That might not work for you. You may have to do something a little bit different. But whatever you do, you have to make sure that you have consistent time of practice on the instrument. Now I get it. I know that in music, sometimes we have starts and stops. There's times where we feel more inspired than at other times. But what I'm saying to you is you simply have to press through that. Take it from me from experience, because there's been times in my musical journey where I have let off the gas pedal and have not practiced to the degree that I should, and I've suffered for that. So you have to have consistent practice. I encourage you to try to pick up your instrument every single day if you can. It's fine to take a day off here and there if you must, and sometimes out of necessity we just can't pick it up because we have life responsibilities and all of those things that we have to do. But try your very best to figure out how you can be consistent with your practice. All right, let me say one final thing before we go. Maybe we could call this a fourth tip. But really, this is just a tip that kind of governs all of the other three things that I've said to you so far. And here's what I want to say to you. Over these three tips that I've given, make sure that you add the element of intentionality. All right, the first tip, I said you got to get together with other people and play music. You have to be intentional about that. You have to make time for that. You have to make phone calls. You have to figure out where people play music and go get with them. Or maybe if you have a friend, you've got to get the schedules together and you have to spend time. So you have to be very intentional about that. The next thing that I said was you have to play music, play songs. Well, you have to be intentional about it. You have to know what you want to learn. You have to sit down and work the piece of music all the way through. Real musicians play music all the way through. And so you have to be intentional about choosing songs that you're going to learn and that you're going to practice. And then lastly, be intentional about your practice time. Make sure that you're putting it in the calendar, figuring out times where you can break away and get your instrument out of the case and just simply practice. And don't just noodle around and goof around. Be intentional about what you're practicing. Make sure that you are planning for progress on the instrument. Now listen, I think if you'll do those things, and I'm speaking to myself as well, if we will do those things, we're going to level up in our performance and our ability to play the instrument. I think these things are very helpful, and I think you'll find them as a common theme with all great musicians. All great musicians have done all of these things. And so I'm sure there's other things that could be said, but these three things are absolutely vital. I hope it's been a help to you. Thanks for stopping by the channel, and we'll catch you in the next one.